Story 1. Beach Stalker. It was my senior year of high school, and like most 17-year-olds, my mind was preoccupied with girls. I had a crush on Tiffany, a girl in my physics class. She's beautiful and charming, and I can't stop thinking about her. My best friend CJ, ever the schemer, convinced Tiffany and her friend Gianna to join us at the beach one Friday night. It was the perfect arrangements. CJ would keep Gianna busy, giving me one last chance to get closer to Tiffany. As we arrived at the beach around 10 p.m., the night was warm and the beach was eerily deserted, a blanket of darkness covering the sand and the sound of waves crashing on the shore in the distance. CJ and I meticulously planned everything. As soon as we parked, he and Gianna wandered off into the darkness, leaving Tiffany and I alone. My heart was pounding, but I remained calm. We walked along the beach, our feet sinking into the cool, wet sand. The moon cast a silvery light on the water, and for a moment, everything was perfect. We talked and laughed, the tension melting away with each step. But then, Tiffany suddenly stopped and pointed towards the ocean. "What is that?" she asked, her voice tinged with worry. I squinted my eyes in the direction she was pointing, but at first I couldn't see anything. Then, as my eyes adjusted, I noticed a tall, dark figure standing in the water. It was too far away to see any details, but it was definitely a "Probably just some night swimmer," I said, trying to sound casual. But something about the stillness of that figure made me shiver. Tiffany was clearly uncomfortable. "Let's go," she suggested. We walked further along the beach, trying to put some distance between us and that mysterious figure. But when I glanced back, the figure had followed us, still keeping that strange distance. My pulse beats faster. I didn't want to scare Tiffany, but my mind raced with possibilities. Who is this? Why are they following us? My phone vibrated in my pocket, breaking the silence. As CJ, his message was panic. "Dude, there's a weird guy in the water watching us." Another message quickly follows. "He's deformed, not normal. Get back in the car now." Panic struck. CJ was always a jokester, but this time his tone was different. Before I could react, a scream tore through the night, a sound so strange it made my blood run cold. It was a half-human, half-demon cry that echoed throughout the beach. "Run," I shouted to Tiffany. We sprinted towards the car, sand flying under our feet. In the distance, I could see CJ and Gianna running towards us, their faces pale and filled with fear. We got to the car and jumped in, locking the door behind us. CJ and Gianna arrived seconds later, panting and shaking. CJ looked at me, eyes wide with horror. "It's not human," I said. "At first we thought it was just some guy, but then it started following us. Its face was completely wrong, like it was disfigured or something." Gianna nodded, tears in her eyes. "It feels like it's watching us, like it wants something from us." We sat in the car, the engine running, but neither of us wanted to make the first move. The beach once a place of potential romance and fun, has turned into a scene from a nightmare. The figure in the water, the horrifying scream, CJ's description of the creature. It all played over and over again in my... In the end, we drove away in silence, each lost in his own thoughts. The night that was supposed to be my chance to get closer to Tiffany turned into a haunting experience that none of us will ever forget. The beach is no longer a place of fun and relaxation. Now, it is a place of lingering fear. Story 2. The mysterious boat. My sisters and I often visited the beach near our home in Florida, a tradition that we cherished. The sunsets were always beautiful, and the beach was less crowded during the evening hours. One particular evening, as the sky turned a brilliant orange, my youngest sister, Ksenia, who was just 13 years old, eagerly wanted to go swimming. I, being the responsible older brother, told her to come back in 10 minutes. My other sister, Nadia, 16 years old, wanted to play volleyball, so we set up near the net while Ksenia dashed into the water. Caught up in the game with Nadia, I lost track of time. When I finally looked up from the volleyball, I couldn't see Ksenia anywhere. Panic started to rise as I scanned the beach and the water, calling out her name. The sun was dipping below the horizon, making it harder to see. Desperately, I noticed a luxury boat anchored not too far from the shore. It was a sleek, opulent vessel that stood out against the fading light. Hoping that Ksenia might have somehow ended up there, I dove into the water and swam towards the... The swim felt like it took forever, my anxiety growing with every stroke. As I climbed aboard, I immediately heard laughter coming from below deck. My heart pounded in my chest. I called out Ksenia's name, and to my immense relief, I heard her respond. I rushed down the narrow steps and found her sitting on a plush bed, holding a can of soda. 2 men were seated nearby, their eyes fixed on me as I entered the room. One of the men, wearing a charming but unsettling smile, commented on how kind my sister was. The other quickly added that they had just offered her a ride and some snacks because she seemed lonely out in the water. Their explanations did little to ease my suspicions. The atmosphere was thick with unease, and every instinct screamed at me to get Ksenia out of there. Ignoring their offer to give us a ride back to shore, I hugged Ksenia tightly and whispered that we were leaving. We climbed back up to the deck and I helped her into the water. We swam back to the beach as fast as we could, the boat receding into the distance as the last light of day vanished. When we got home, I immediately told our father what had happened. He was furious, not just at the situation, but at me for not paying closer attention and for failing to get any details about the boat or the men on board. He grounded Ksenia and forbade her from going to the beach at night. I felt a mix of guilt and anger, replaying the evening's events in my mind. The encounter left us all shaken. The beach, once a place of fun and relaxation, had now become a site of potential danger. The thought of what could have happened haunted me. The faces of those men, the eerie calmness of their demeanor, and the helplessness I felt in that moment were all burned into my memory. From that day on, our trips to the beach were never the same. We became more cautious, always staying close and keeping a watchful eye on each other. The mysterious boat and its unsettling occupant served as a stark reminder of how quickly a seemingly safe situation could turn into something terrifying. Story 3. Invisible Intruder. My girlfriend and I arrived at our beach house in Florida after a long drive from Connecticut. Exhausted, we unpacked our things and laid down on the beach. As night fell, my girlfriend noticed a light in the upstairs window. Worse still, a shadow moves behind the curtains. I ran to the house and quietly snuck upstairs. The room with the lights on was empty, but I heard a creaking sound outside. Only my girlfriend who followed me despite my warnings. Together we searched the house but found no one. Assuming the intruder had escaped, we locked the door and went to bed. At night, a noise under the bed woke us up. I peeked and found myself staring at an intruder. He rushed out of the house before I could react. We searched again, found nothing stolen and no signs of a break-in. The rest of our vacation was stressful. The beach house, once a peaceful refuge, now feels tainted by the presence of an intruder. The thought of someone hiding under the bed while we feel safe is chilling, a stark reminder that danger can lurk in even the most familiar places. Story 4. Abandoned campsite. Every summer, my friends and I often go to a deserted beach to camp on the weekend. This year, we arrived late and found an abandoned campsite in our usual camping spot. There was a smoldering fire, a tent and scattered belongings, but no people. We set up camp nearby, joking about the mysterious campers who seem to have disappeared. As night falls, the atmosphere becomes eerie. The silence was thick, interrupted only by the occasional crackle of the dying fire. Around midnight, we heard voices in the distance. They were small, almost whispering, carried by the wind from the direction of the abandoned campsite. Curious and a little worried, we decided to investigate. We approached cautiously, our flashlights piercing the darkness. As we approached the campsite, the voices suddenly stopped. Suddenly, my friend Mark screamed. His flashlight illuminated a face staring at us from the tree, a thin, pale face with sunken eyes. We all stiffened, our breath caught in our throats. The figure stepped forward, revealing more of its skinny body. It looked human but had a terrifying, supernatural aura. We ran back to camp, our hearts pounding. As we hurriedly packed our things, the whispering voices rang out again, closer this time. We grabbed what we needed and ran to the car, leaving the rest of our belongings behind. As we drove away, we saw figures appear from the trees, watching us leave. We never went back to that beach again. Memories of haunting faces and whispers in the dark remained with us, a cold reminder of the night we encountered the unknown. Story 5. The Lighthouse Keeper's Warning. My girlfriend and I decided to explore a remote beach famous for its old abandoned lighthouse. Locals stay away from the area because they believe the place is haunted, but we dismissed the stories as superstition. We arrived at dusk and wandered the beach, eventually reaching the lighthouse. The lighthouse is tall and majestic. The windows are dark and lifeless. We dared each other to go inside, and with nervous laughter, we pushed the door creaking open. Side, the air is damp and musty. We climb the spiral staircase, our footsteps echoing in the empty tower. At the top, we found the lighthouse keeper's quarters, untouched for decades. A feeling of unease overwhelmed us, but we shrugged and enjoyed the view. When night fell, we decided to camp on the beach. We pitched our tent near the lighthouse, and once we were settled in, we noticed a flickering light in the tower. Confused and a little scared, we climbed up to investigate. The light led us to a dusty old lantern on the caretaker's desk, now inexplicably lit. In the doorway, a man dressed in rags, his eyes wide with fear. "You shouldn't be here," he whispered. "He will come for you." Before we could ask who he meant, the lantern went out, plunging us into darkness. We staggered down the stairs, scared. Outside, we saw shadows moving in the lighthouse windows, as if someone or something. We fled to our tents, but couldn't sleep. Throughout the night, we heard footsteps crunching on the sand and saw flashing lights in the tower. At dawn, we packed our things and left, vowing never to return. The lighthouse stands as a somber reminder of that night. The lighthouse keeper's warning echoed in our minds, and we couldn't escape the feeling that something was still watching us, waiting for us to return.